I pray this trusting and believing in Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen.
Emily,
Amen.
so let me invite our moderator, Elder Letting, to take over the program. Karibu, Elder.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, our sister Lynette and Sister Emily, for that good prayer and introduction. Good evening, everyone, and welcome to today's program. Today is the second day of the Women Ministries webinar on in business and investments. Our speaker today, and like yesterday, or also like last night, is none other than CPA Dr. Patrick Muinde Mumo, a principal lecturer at the Kenya School of Government. He's been a lecturer of very many people, including myself. I've had the privilege of being trained by our trainer tonight, CPA Dr. Mumo. Even one of my training is the Kenya School of Government that is called Strategic Leadership Development Program. Together with our sister Lynette, they taught me and I qualified successfully. So allow me to welcome. Kenya School of Government is a very respectable institution in Kenya and even in the region that trains a lot of key government officers as well as other people. And we want to thank our sister Lynette for arranging to bring to us this afternoon one of our colleagues, Dr. Patrick, who is well renowned even amongst the accountants, where I'm one of them. So thank you so much. We thank God for this opportunity and the privilege to be here this evening. Without much ado, we would like to welcome our speaker. Join me in welcoming our speaker this evening, CPA Dr. Patrick Mumo. Members, please listen keenly. I hope you have notebooks and ask as many questions as possible so that you can learn together with me, so that at the end of it, when we apply the knowledge, at the end of the day, we will ask each one of us to do an action plan. What lessons have you learned and what can you do out of this webinar? And thank you so much. Welcome, Daktari. These are your people, the ones you met yesterday, and I'm sure more will be joining us shortly. Thank you. Karibu.
Okay, thank you, Daktari. Pleasure to meet you. I think we met last year. Then pleasure to connect you again. Members, good evening. And thank God we have been able to meet again for this second session. Today will bias our discussion on business, especially looking at the COVID environment. As I said yesterday, this was unprecedented. Nobody expected what came, but the economic shocks have been real. And as I said yesterday, the economy has not stopped. So business is still going on. People are still making money and the world is still moving. There are shocks, yes, we know that. And like yesterday, we looked at, there's a lot of businesses that have been hit hard. Jobs have been lost, but we are still here. So we still have to find a way of moving along. So I'll be making a presentation on business, but more so I'll try to be as practical as possible so that I can be able to speak to real issues that are probably affecting us in our circumstances, and especially here in Kenya. I know many of us were already in business, probably. That's what we are doing for a living. Probably some of us were in the sectors that have been hardest hit. Probably some of us were planning to start business, and probably because of the disruptions, you're not sure how to go about it. Some of us were in employment, and maybe now we are out of employment and we are thinking of moving to business. Some of us were thinking of business as a side hustle, probably alongside work. So all these things are coming to play before us, and I'll be speaking to everyone. I'll try to be as practical as possible. I'll move out of the theories, but also I'll try to put biblical context, like I talked about yesterday. As I said yesterday, the pandemic has not taken our abilities. The pandemic has not made us incapable of finding a new, probably, source of income of venturing into new opportunities. The question is just being able to identify what those opportunities are, where they are, and probably what are the rules of the game as we move into those opportunities. So, so I'll start the presentation, and the presentation is based on a perspective of optimism. I think those of us who are Christians, we have been called to be people of faith and to trust that our God is in control. So the presentation outline, I'm going to share some thoughts, things that probably my personal views about the pandemic, and probably this should be able to shape our discussion in the evening. But also try to look at some key biblical characters where we can pick lessons from. I'll pick about 4 that we could identify with, especially in the circumstances that you're in. Then I'll try to map to bring the pandemic in the business world, the exact context, because we need to know what is happening around the economy for us to be able to know where to plug in and how to plug in. I'll also try to map how the economy has shifted. And the reason why I'm doing that mapping will be to bring to our attention what are probably the changes that we expect. And from there, we can now try to see what are the emerging opportunities. Normally, economic shocks and probably like no matter what has necessitated them, it's a double-edged sword. As some lose, new opportunities emerge, and new ways of doing business and new frontiers of money emerge. So I'll try to look at some of the key sectors that have been affected and how probably they are shifting and what are the emerging opportunities around there. Then probably those of us who are already in business, I'll try to underline what are the must-dos, what things do we need to do, or what are the priorities right now as we survive or go through the pandemic. And probably then I'll be having some thoughts, probably practical ideas on what we can, probably what we can look at, things that we can hang on, and things where we can start. Then we'll have a brief plenary. The presentation today is a bit short, so I think we'll have a bit of good time to look at the plenary discussions. So my opening thoughts, especially looking at the pandemic now, we are year plus, almost 13 months into the pandemic since the first case was reported in Kenya. And the truth is that these are not normal times. I think we need to accept that. We also need to know that there are a lot of uncertainty around us, and no single person, no single analysis right now can sum up what to expect tomorrow. We do not know how long the pandemic is going to stay. We do not know what the government measures, so Canadian measures government might take. We also know that the science is a bit clear now, so people are able to know how to deal with the COVID. And we know what responses are supposed to be done, but those are beyond our control. Because like in our case, we know that the way out is vaccination, which is under the control of government. And none of us has control on how fast the government can do it or how fast the government will be able to do it. But as Christians, we are people who are called to faith. And to me, this is the time to test our faith. And this is also the time to act on our faith. We are told that faith is about hoping for things that are not seen and trusting that the future is going to open a way and be good for us. So I think for us Christians, we are being tested and probably need to practice our faith. But also more important, we need to remember that we need to be glad that we are still there. We are in the land of the living. And for as long as we are alive, we are being called to be fruitful. And as I was thinking about this, I looked at the resilience of the fruit on the left. You can see even after the main tree was cut, a new one is germinating and still has a fruit. I think this is a big lesson that we could learn. No matter what the pandemic has thrown on us, we still have an opportunity to raise up and keep moving. So probably those would be my personal views, and I try to build them within the discussion. Now, the biblical characters that I was thinking through as I prepared for this presentation, there's a story of Joseph that we very well know in the Bible. We know the story of Moses. We know the story of David. And also in the New Testament, we know the story of Paul. Now, when you look at all these men, they were great men of faith. They did a lot in the kingdom of God. And the most interesting thing, my point that I'm trying to put across is that when God called them, he never gave them any special weapons other than what they had. Like in the case of Joseph, Joseph was getting dreams, and he was speaking about those dreams to his brothers, his parents, and it is dreams that brought him out of the dungeons in Egypt and elevated him to become the prime minister of Egypt during a very trying time, or during the times of Pharaohs. So when God was using Joseph, nothing out of the ordinary was he used. He only used what Joseph had. In the case of Moses, he grew up in the palace. Then he went to become a huntsman. And when God called him, he only had a staff. And that is the staff that God used to use him and also to redeem his people from captivity. In case of David, when God called him to be king over his people in Israel, he could not even use the weapon that he was being given by King Saul then. He only used the weapon that he knew about, the weapons that he used to hide his father's sheep. And that was a sling and stones and his shepherd's bag. And that is what got the job done in case of the contest with Goliath, the giant from Philistine. And he was able to accomplish God's work in very amazing ways. And the kingdom was given to him. We look at Paul. Paul, he was persecutor of Christians. But Paul was a scholar, very good in writing and even in speaking. So when God called him, he used the weapons that he had. You know, many of the books in the New Testament, Paul wrote them. And you know the amount of work he did through his message and his message to many people around the world. So the bottom line in this is that God used what these men had. He never gave them something new. Even in this pandemic, I think all of us have something. Whether you've lost your job, you still have the expertise, the knowledge, you still have the skills and the competences that you had. Some of us were in industries where we were using our talents. Those talents are still within you. So even through this pandemic, God is able to use what you have. And what you have can be turned into business opportunities. It can be turned to your new breakthrough. And God is not limited. So as we exercise our faith, we need to know that we are not empty. We are not without something. And that is the most important thing. When I was talking about personal finance yesterday, I said money does not start from zero. Money always starts from where there is something. So what is it that you have? And as I go through this presentation, you need to see where can you play in the economy? If you're in business, what is it left of your business? If you're planning to move into business, what talents and what things are you able to use and turn them into business opportunities? So these stories give us hope that whatever little we have, we might undermine it, but God is still able to use it and bless us in amazing ways. Now, when I come to the economy and the pandemic, we need to understand that we all operate within the economy. None of us can thrive outside the economy. And the economy is like in insurance business, they talk about underwriting. So all what we do is underwritten by the economy. And we can only plug into businesses and opportunities within the economy. And there cannot be any economic activity outside the economy. So we'll still have to find our ways around the economy. We need to see how the economy is shifting, what new opportunities it's bringing up, and what opportunities are being closed within the economy. We also know, as we talked about yesterday, the pandemic has wiped out our GDP in a big way. And it's not only unique to Kenya, it's across the world. Many of our businesses were also linked to the international economy. And we know the pandemic has affected those GDPs. In business world, GDP means money in circulation. So as long as the economy, it means that the money in circulation is also reducing. But there are new frontiers and new opportunities that I mentioned. The other thing is we need to appreciate, especially those of us who are in business, economies tend to react differently. So before we think about how to respond to the shocks that are coming to our businesses, before we look at what new is coming up, what new opportunities are coming up and where we can plug in, we need to understand how the economy works. And from a technical point of view, pandemics tend to have what we call a lagged impact. I know many of us think we are 1 year in the pandemic, we have learned a lot. But in terms of the economy, we actually still don't know the true impact. Nobody can quite exactly tell you how many jobs have been lost. No one can tell us how much of the GDP has been wiped out, because even up to as we talk today, certain parts of the economy are still being wiped out, and the impact is normally slow. And even if the pandemic ends today, we are not going to come out of the pandemic immediately. So the economy will not respond like instantly. Economies don't respond to, instantly. Those of us who have lost jobs, for example, simply because the pandemic ends, even if it ends today, doesn't mean that companies start employing tomorrow. It takes time before the business and economic activity picks up. So this is very important for our planning purposes and also for purpose of knowing how to engage in the new norm. So economies normally take much longer. And from where I sit and from my technical background, I can project that will not take less than 3 to 4 or to 5 years. Also bearing in mind that we are going through towards an election period. And again, it's normally toxic, it's way for businesses. So you do not expect the economy to rebound to where it was probably less than 3 years. It can take as long as 5 years or more, depending on how the government responds and how the government is able to cushion the economy. So we need to expect a slow economic activity for an extended period of time. And this is one very important aspect about for businesses. The other thing that we need to look at, we need to understand how our government is responding. The economy is in the responsibility of the government. The government has the powers and the monopoly to guide us on the economic policy, the macroeconomic planning. Unfortunately, we don't seem to have either strong muscle as a government, or the government doesn't seem to be very clear on how to tackle the economy. So we still have a lot of mixed policies that are contradicting and that are somehow not good for business. For example, when we had the stimulus package, and I remember I wrote about it, as soon as we tried to flatten the curve, the government was quick to lift those stimulus, those things that had been put in place to cushion the government. I mean, the businesses and people were lifted so fast. So probably that was a bit too fast. Many governments are still holding those restrictions, or sorry, those stimulus packages. We still have a restatement of taxes that are a bit punitive for businesses. And this is something that you need to start thinking about as even look at how you're coming now. We have like now the turnover tax, the 1% turnover tax. It's quite punitive for small businesses. But it means that whatever, as long as you have formalized your business, you need to pay those taxes, which is normally your turnover, you're not taking care of your operating expenses. But also, we do not have a clear policy on how we are tackling the pandemic. Like I said yesterday, the current containment measures in the Nairobi, Machakos, Nakuru, Kiambu, and Kajiado are open. They're open lockdowns. We do not know how long they will take. We do not know whether they will be extended. We do not know what other injections the government is going to do. So leaving them open is a bit unpredictable. It's caused a lot of uncertainty for businesses. So it makes it a bit hard to know or how to plan Some of us already have employees. You don't know how to deal with them. You don't know how long these closures will be. So it's very hard for business to make decisions. Even those of us who want to make new investment, we do not know how long it will take. So that's not very good from the side of the government. But also government plans, we know the government is the largest consumer in the economy. And government has a lot of implications on business. Nobody spends as much money as government and government agencies. Like now when you talk about a budget of 3 billion, the government is saying that they are going to spend that money within the economy. And spending within the economy means that they give opportunities to private businesses because government does not buy from itself. So when government is spending within the economy, it's a lot of money that is injected in the economy. The challenge here is that the government budget do not seem to be adjusted to probably reality. Like now we have a projected growth rate of about 7%. Probably the economy has never grown by 7% since 2007. So we had a long period of normal times. The economy didn't grow by 7%. But here in the pandemic, and the government is like saying we are going to grow by 7%, that is not necessarily vacuum. I mean, depending on looking at the trends. So it takes a lot of effort and a lot of formative action from the government to inject enough money for an economy to grow by 7%. So for me, I'm not sure whether we are going to get those kind of growth. So if you're doing your analysis, you need to be a bit cautious, probably especially when you're looking at those projections. But that's not withstanding. We also need to see how the government is spending. I know many of us never look at budgets. Many of us never look at government plans. But actually, businesses rely heavily on what government is planning to do. I've said government has the largest expenditure program in any economy. So nobody is going to spend as much money as the government within the economy. So as we look at our businesses, we also need to look at what are the priorities of the government at this time or point in time. Because there it's going to tell us where probably money will be shifting to and where money will be circulating. So these are things that we need to start thinking about, especially as we look at how we get into the economy. Now, unfortunately, the marketplace and in where businesses operate, we are driven by forces of demand and supply. There have to be people willing to buy for you to be able to do business. But also there must be a product or service that you need or you can supply. So the marketplace is dictated by forces of demand and supply that are beyond anybody's control. So as we talk about people losing their incomes and livelihoods, that means it is affecting the demand. But also as other sectors have been affected, it might also affect the supply side, and it can also create other opportunities. So no matter what is happening in the environment, at the end of the day, the business will be driven by what people are willing to spend. Where people are willing to spend, what people are willing to buy. But also, we also need to look at what are the supply. Many of the businesses dependent on imports from outside the country. A lot of these supply chains have been interrupted. Probably it's a bit more expensive now to import things compared to when aviation industry was open and when there was free movement. Many people are able to fly out of the country and get products and services. All those things have been challenged, they have changed. And there are a lot of shifts. It doesn't mean that there's a vacuum. So we only need to know now, how can we now adjust with this reality? So businesses are driven by real demand and supply forces. Those are beyond anybody's control. We can only try to align ourselves with those new demands and those.
Dr. Mumo, you seem to be muted. Elder, is it only me who can't hear Dr. Mumo? You seem to be muted. Hello, Dr. Mumo. Dr. Mumo, can you hear us?
It looks like he's out of the net even.
I'm seeing like he's muted from my end. Let me.
Okay. Sorry, somebody has muted me. I don't know who it is.
Yeah,
Hello.
we were trying to get your attention. Sorry, we lost you a bit. You were muted.
Somebody muted me. I've just seen.
Sorry about that.
Yes.
Hi there.
So,
Okay, please proceed.
so at what point did I disappear? Probably I can recap a bit.
Maybe just take about 2 steps back.
So let me see. Sorry, let me restart with sharing. So let me see where it was. So
I think you
was
are
I
there.
up to it here?
That is where you
Yes.
are. That's just move to the next slide.
Okay.
The next one.
Okay, fine. So I just talked about the forces of demand and supply, and I've said this is what dictates real businesses. So now I had moved to the next one, and I was looking at the dilemmas that businesses are facing right now. And I said, from a Christian perspective, many of us are struggling between profits and being humane and being compassionate. I know it's very hard for people to make decisions to lay off staff, especially given our Christian background. It's quite hard to draw people at this time. We're in a pandemic, they're losing livelihoods, and maybe that's the only thing that they add. So these are dilemmas that businesses are struggling with, but unfortunately, businesses still have to be making money for them to retain people. But I'll probably be talking about some options that we can start exploring from a business perspective. But there are also what we call business interest, particularity. For example, during the pandemic, we had the birth of the cancer scandal. And many people are struggling with, do you make a profit in an environment where people are suffering? It's a bit hard to plug in there, especially from a Christian perspective. We know people are hurting, but probably the opportunities are within that sector where the pandemic has hit. And some people might be struggling going to those sectors, or do we not go? The other big challenge is reduced business opportunity. As I say, as the GDP and the economy is being affected, the opportunities available are becoming much lower or much fewer. But we know we operate in an environment that is very corrupt, and that is the reality of our country. So sometimes you might be caught up in fighting for those contracts that are available because the opportunities are fewer. Probably people might take advantage to demand more bribes, kickbacks, and other things. And as Christians, you're wondering, do you join in such deals, or what do you do? Unfortunately, probably some of the opportunities that are available right now are in sectors where they are a bit prone to those kind of things, and people are struggling between business, when you have no business, and ethical considerations. Do you take advantage of those opportunities, even when you know probably they're not right? But the other thing is business also struggling about cash flows, and also credit. Many people, when they get hurt in terms of their livelihoods, these have been our customers, but they have no cash right now. And you're wondering, do you sell to them on credit? And if you sell on them on credit, how will they pay you? And probably they have lost jobs. But you also need cash to keep the business afloat because the economy is not doing as well. And the little cash that is available has to be managed properly. So these are dilemmas that that we need to deal with. These are dilemmas and struggles that businesses are facing in a real time. So it's a bit of a challenge. There are no yes and no answers. Nobody can exactly say what is right and what is wrong. So these are things that everybody who is in business is struggling with. And we need to find ways of managing and dealing with them. So these challenges are real, but we need to be able to manage them. And I think everybody who's in the industry and right now in business, they know that. And as you move into business, these are things that you need to deal with as you move into the business. So the next thing that we need to look at is how the economy has shifted. And as I look at how the economy has shifted, I'll be looking at some of the impacts on the economy and probably now what are the emerging opportunities. There are things that are emerging in those sectors. In the structure of our economy, there are two parts. There's what we call the formal and the informal. In our case, the informal sector is largely intact. These are the guys who operate in the what we call the Yuakali sector. That sector is well cushioned during the pandemic, and the economic activities around there are still moving on. And that sector has some, I will not necessarily say they are legal or illegal. Many of the businesses in the informal sector have the advantage of operating outside the purview of taxes. Either the taxman is not able to get to them, or it's very expensive to tax them. So they have that window that actually you can operate there without necessarily breaking the law and without paying taxes. But the complex with the informal sector is it's informal. There are no rules. Government is not able to regulate those sectors. So probably they tend to operate on the rules of the jungle. So for example, you go to Kikomba or Malikiti and how that market operates. You can survive there without paying any taxes. But how do you access it? It's controlled by public cartels. People who are faceless, you don't know who they are, but they actually have a lot of power. And they determine who sells and who doesn't sell in that market. So these are the challenges that as you think about business that you need to think about. The informal sector seems to be hanging on very well during this pandemic. They will not be very much affected by the punitive taxes and some of the policies that are not friendly to businesses. But when you go there, you still have to contend with the informality and the rules that are dictated there, which are the rules of the jungle. So I know like some of us who have ever tried to go and sell either vegetables or fruits or something there, you know that you cannot sometimes even walk in there and sell on a free market basis. You might have to deal with brokers who are less or might even block you. So these are some of the realities, but the sector seems to be very well. The Yuakali sector is hanging very well. Actually, that's the easiest way to easiest entry point right now. But probably you need to know the rules of the game there because it's informal and they operate by rules that are not within the controls of government and any regulator. So probably that is the challenge with that sector, but it's actually quite intact and it's actually now the largest part of our economy. The formal sectors, some of them have been very much hard hit. The hospitality sector, we know, these are the hotels and others. Unfortunately, they have become the largest victims. Right now, we're being told that we can only do takeaways, especially in the 5 major counties. And those of us who probably do not probably have a good understanding of our economy, the 5 counties, actually, once the 5 counties are locked, you have locked almost over 60 or 70% of the economy. And also you have cut connections. Like if you're in Mombasa, you can't move to Kisumu because you have to pass through the counties. So closing the 5 counties actually almost closing the economy. And this sector has been very much hard hit. Unfortunately, it will be the subject of future containment measures if we don't contain the virus permanently. But that does not mean that the sector is closed. What is happening is that the sector is shifting. And it's only shifting to new revenue streams. Right now, many people are distributing food and foodstuffs through digital platforms. I've seen businesses and hotels that actually partnered with logistics companies like Global and others. So people still eat, people still continue to do functions, It's only that now the business has shifted. So many of the people who are in the physical places, you find that probably takeaways normally account for about 10%. But now we can expand that through the virtual distributions. And I think we need to leverage on the borders and other people. You can actually plug in. There are actually people who are specialized in the distribution, just agree on them and know how to shift the cost to the consumers. Some of the other, another event sector that is likely going to be hit hard, and also especially for the long term, is the hospitality event management, which is closely related to the hospitality. We expect companies and business to have a slow pickup, even after the economy opens. Corporates do not start events and activities immediately. So you expect a very slow recovery in that sector. It may take much longer before businesses come back to normal. But also some of the activities that are done in that sector, for example, weddings, how we do burial ceremonies and or respect rights, probably those have been altered permanently. People can now do weddings in very small groups. You do not expect those trends to change immediately. Probably they'll become permanent features in that sector. So those sectors, you need to understand the dynamics and the new changes that are coming up. Now, the other sector that is, it might have been affected, but it's quite resilient, is the education sector and capacity building. This has probably been altered permanently. How we will do training, in the coming years, how we will do education schools in the coming years, probably has permanently changed. So even if we go back to physical classes, you do not expect the digital platforms to change. So this will be a new frontier. Many businesses, many entities will most likely retain the platform that they're using. You know, now we can do programs all over the world. We can make money from all over the world. You can do capacity building, you can do training, you can do consulting and many other things around that sector. But for those of us who are in that sector, we also expect the sector is quite resilient. It's a bit insensitive to shocks. For example, if you look at education institutions, parents are very keen on their children getting education. So that sector is not going to be sensitive to shocks as much. Parents will still pay for their children to get good education. They'll still pay for their children to get a post probably basic education. People will still spend on improving their skills and competences. So that is one of the most resilient sectors. But now looking at the data right now, we know that children are the less vulnerable. We know children are the less vulnerable, and we know that it's unlikely that government will not open schools. Right now, it's unlikely that government will not reopen schools because we know that they are less vulnerable, and any responsible government will want to maintain children in school. Even UNICEF and WHO have said schools can continue because children and people within that bracket are less vulnerable. The other thing that has changed is logistics. These ones need to, how we distribute things. This is a new sector that is expanding. We now know that we can send goods, commodities and everything, food and everything, to households and home deliveries. So probably this will be an emerging sector that we can grow on. We know there are already established companies, but it's also going to happen at small scale, especially like food distributions within communities and within estates. So this will be a new venture area, probably that is going to be permanent and that is going to give us permanent opportunities in our current environment. So logistics is going to be a major issue. Logistics is going to be a major issue and a major new area of opportunity. Some other things that are going to be shifting probably is public relations and marketing. Public relations and marketing is going to probably change permanently. And the reason why it's changing permanently is that many things are moved digital and they're moved to digital platforms. So it's many companies are moving their marketing and advertisement into digital platforms. But also in the digital platform, we are getting new spaces. For example, people have good following base. For example, you have a web page where you do your things and you have a huge following. Companies are coming to advertise there because companies go to, and businesses go to advertise where there are people and where they can reach audience. So most of the public relation and marketing is shifting to the online platforms. Now, in those of us who are in public relations, some of the things that I imagine is managing the risks that I imagine in the digital platforms. Brands can easily be hacked within the digital platforms, especially negative information can easily spread. So if in that field and you're managing the PR for companies, probably you need to be shifting towards where companies are shifting also. So these are new frontiers that are coming up. The traditional PR and marketing probably might be also altered permanently because many people move to those digital spaces. One thing that might survive permanently is also commercial or office space. Those of us in real estate, it's unlikely that people and businesses will go back to physical places. There are companies that are permanently shifted, like companies like Gongo and most of the IT companies. They have actually completely moved to virtual offices. They're moving their staff and their people to work permanently on flexi hours and to work from wherever they are. Many of the people are even in consulting. People are going to close offices. We know now that our vehicles, our houses have been turned into offices. Almost everybody has invested in somewhere where they can conduct business. You do not expect people to shift and start paying rent simply because the pandemic has ended. So that is probably going to be affected, possibly. And even those who will be looking for office space, it will be much, much smaller than they used to do. So that probably is going to be affected permanently in the real estate sector. Now, in the agriculture, we have the agro value chains, especially now in the logistics and how people are connecting farmers. The pandemic has taught us a lot of things. We can use apps to get products from all over the place and move them to wherever we want them. So there are new marketing, new way of getting products and sourcing products. And new frontiers are emerging, especially in the agricultural value chains. You can sell products, inputs, and supplies. You can get products and supplies from all over through the apps. And I think they've become quite many right now. And there's a lot of opportunity that is emerging there. Something else that is going to probably become permanent is business process outsourcing. One of the reactions of businesses and corporates right now during this period is to move from permanent contracts to very temporary contracts, where you subcontract exactly what you need and for that right now. So you expect businesses to retain that. You expect business to retain subcontracting services. They are quite cost saving. You only subcontract what you need for that moment. And this is going to be sustained. So this is an area, if you have certain competencies and such skills you can offer in short contract basis, probably this will be a permanent feature now in our business environment. Subcontracting and those short-term opportunities. So these are areas where you have skills and competencies. You can see what companies are looking for in short-term contracts. You just do an assignment, you move on to the next one, and move on to the next contract. Businesses are likely going to sustain that. The entertainment industry has also changed significantly. Now many people are doing their things on YouTube. I'm told that when you get to certain numbers within YouTube, you start even earning certain incomes. And people are growing their fan base and they're growing income streams actually from digital platform by just growing numbers and growing your followership in that digital platform. So this is going to be sustained. It's probably going to become the competition of the future. Those of us who have talents and who have skills and competences that we can serve within that industry. Now, the most hard hit will be the aviation sector and the value chain. I know many of us have been working within the value chain of the aviation, either ticketing, logistics, and supplies. The aviation sector will take much longer. It's projected it can even take more than close to 10 years before people start flying the way they were flying pre-COVID. Countries are going to restrict until probably the pandemic is controlled globally. So even a country that will be able to contain the pandemic, they will still have a lot of restrictions on how people move to their countries until and unless the pandemic is contained. This sector is going to probably change for a very long time. And even if it's going to recover, probably it will have a very slow recovery. And probably it will take quite a lot of time before we could get recovery in that sector. Other things are in beauty and fitness. I think many of us are no longer going to the gym. The gym has been brought in our TVs. So if I want to do gym in the morning, I do not need to go to a gym. I just need to switch on the TV, and every station is doing it. And do the gym with that guy, or people are there. That you expect is going to be maintained permanently. People are not going to probably change that and stop that. So in that sector, probably people are going to retain those new services. So it might affect how many people are going to physical gyms for a bit of a long time. We know like the containment measures, masks and other things, they're affecting the beauty products, especially for the ladies who normally have a big market, who drive consumption in that sector. So probably those of us who are into beauty products, most of them are going to be adjusted. I know even for men, we are less going to the cuts, the haircuts as often as we used to do, because people are still feeling probably not safe in those places. So as long as you have the pandemic, that sector might be a bit slow and for an extended period of time. Now, in the food and nutrition, and those of us who are in the this kind of business, a lot of shifting is changing. People don't stop eating, but people are probably to change permanently what they are eating. Like now, when we look at the pandemic and how the pandemic is behaving, people are moving to more healthy stuff, healthy foods. So it might affect the fast foods and how people are eating and their eating habits. So we are seeing people leaning more to the healthy, probably what we used to call traditional nutritional value foods, the cassavas, the highly nutritious vegetables that come from Western and Nyanza, and probably in central, certain parts of central. So if you're in that sector, you need to know how that sector is shifting. What are the consumer preferences right now? And those things are the ones that are moving. And we need to start moving with our customers, and our customers, they move. We need to start moving with them. The farming activities, agriculture is probably also going to change permanently. You're already seeing the Ministry of Agriculture trying to get the urban farming areas, what we're calling the agro-farm, the farms within the urban areas. Many of us already have backyards. Some of us have already moved to there. So we expect our schoomers, our ventures to be coming from urban areas. Quite a lot of cities have already moved. Like you go to New York, a lot of food is being produced in actually on top of buildings. So this is going to probably be permanent. Those of us who have backyards where you can grow vegetables, your cars can become your shops, and you can actually do those things. And there are quite a lot of technology that's quite effective. So probably fresh foods and produce will be coming from our backyards, as opposed to from the shambas in the villages or the traditional way we'll be doing it. So this is probably going to be a permanent feature also, and it's a new opportunity actually for many of us. We can even do this as a side hustle. We can also start supplying vegetables around. And I've seen a lot of fresh vegetables that look like they're very fresh, being taken from around. Now, what are some of the permanent things that are going to be the future? We are going to see digital stores. In Kenya, we were lagging behind on digital platforms. When you talk about digital stores, like some of us have bought things on things like Alibaba and all those other things. The shops where you buy those things, they are not physical stores. They are purely digital in that they are only a linkage between the producers and the buyers. So when you're talking about digital stores, this is one of the easiest and cheapest ways that you can do. You can actually negotiate and go to suppliers, talk to them, and create platforms. And your business is simply to link the buyer and the producer without you doing anything. And you sell their products through them. China and many other countries, West countries, are actually doing very well in the digital stores. You actually do not have any stock. You do not have any stock yourself, but you sell products of particular companies, and you sell them. You find customers on the digital marketplace. You either on Facebook, and once people contract and apply and get the product, then you get the product from the supplier and you ship it. So digital stores are going to become a permanent feature, and actually most of our business is going to shift there. So this is a new venture. It costs very little capital. You only need a digital platform. It can be your page, it can be your website, and you can actually negotiate with suppliers and you agree on pricing and all that. Your business become only the interface, linking them with the customers. And once the orders are done, you get the actual product from the supplier. I've been to town and I've bought actually bags where people do not have a physical office. You actually go to the website, you get an order, and once you get an order is when they link you to the person who has the stocks. And there are many products that are on the back end in town and in various urban areas. They do not have a physical front office, but they're actually selling in the digital platform. So this is going to become a bigger place. We expect a lot of growth in that sector. The other thing is business support services. During the pandemic, business are going to do restructuring. Business are going to deal with the taxes that are coming up. Business are going to move to digitization, and they're going to deal with the emerging cybersecurity. So we have people who are good in ICT. Some of us have even children who are good, very good in ICT. We can actually partner with them and start giving these support services. I've said, as businesses readjust, they're going to seek temporary services as opposed to long-term engagement, because everybody is trying to go for short-term services. So business support services, especially organizing the business that are suffering, they might want to reorganize their cost structures. They might want to know how to deal with their new taxes. Those of us who are moving to digital platform, they might also want to see how they market their products and how they promote them, and also how to do the cybersecurity. So that's a new frontier. It's probably something that is going to be with us for a long time, as long as the pandemic lasts with us. There are the psychosocial support services. We know that the pandemic has exposed a lot of things in our families, in our communities, things like counseling, family and community professional support. Those of us who are in that sector have skills in that. Managing the abuses that are happening in families, dealing with people who have been abused. These have become quite common and they have become quite prominent. And these are areas, and as people remain in homes, we expect this to be probably a long term because the business environment has also changed permanently. So this is going to be probably a more permanent feature. The other things that are also now, we know that with digital platform, you don't only need to do business in Kenya. As I talked today, actually somebody was referring me to a consultancy capacity building in Somalia. In a normal time, nobody would think of going to Somalia because of security. But now we have consultants and donors who are supporting digitally based capacity building programs. And actually you can do them right here in Nairobi. So you something far and wide. And our economies are now linked, especially in the digital platforms. So actually that means that what you're doing is only for Kenya. You can now access everybody in the world through your skills and talents, right from where you are. So don't only think about the opportunities here in Kenya. The opportunities in the digital platform are all over the world. You can do anything and any program all over the world right now. And those of us who are moving to start your own pages and your own products, in those pages, you can reach anybody. Actually, you'll never know who your audience is when you're in the digital space. So that is going to be a permanent feature. Now, quickly, I will mention about business and the bottom lines. Right now, one of the things that you need to focus on if you're already in business is to remain afloat. It's much, much easier to revive a business that is there than to start afresh. So one of the things that must be a priority right now is survival. So you need to adjust and probably try to adjust your cost structure to the extent that the business can survive the pandemic, even if you're operating not with much profit or only at break-even point. It's much easier for the business to peak as the economy peaks than to start afresh. The next thing is to focus on cash flows. Cash is the king right now. So you need to know how to deal with a credit because you might not have a lot of a buffer in terms of cash to support your supplies and your supply chains. So probably you need to focus a lot about cash. You better probably sell much less compared to credit. And also you need to balance, I said this on dilemma, with your customers. Those of us who are probably dealing with government is also taking much longer to pay. And these are challenges that you still need to look at. Probably you cannot access credit to finance LPOs as you used to access, but you still have to sell. So right now, cash is quite important, and you need to focus a bit more on controlling your cash. Now, in cost structure, you need to be very radical. Businesses, you need to take a lot of control on, especially pilferage and waste. Probably in normal times, some businesses can survive with some levels of pilferage where staff are taking staff and all that. But during a pandemic, when the economy is quite squeezed, the business might not survive. So you might need to be a bit more stringent and radical on how you deal with waste, and also some of the things that we do that are not value added. For example, if you are moving your products to a digital platform and you are selling online, who bears that cost? Probably you need to know how the customer can be the one who is paying for the distribution without loading that cost to yourself. And as many people are ordering or moving to digital places, they actually come in reality that they need to pay for the logistics. So don't be quick to take up that particular load. You need to be sure if your market is able to take that load. You don't need to take the load on yourself. So you need to be very careful as you move to those logistical distributions. You can actually be selling, but you're not making money. So you need to be very in charge of your cost controls. I've also talked about orienting our business to the new norm. We need to accept that the business space has changed. And business that are going to survive are the business that are going to shift with the changing tide. So you need to know how your sector is changing and how where you're operating is changing, and you change with it. For example, also in the hotel industry, I'm saying that many people are becoming more sensitive on what they are eating. So you cannot just continue to pack what you've been selling and expect your customers or think your customers are still there. You need to know where they are and shift to them and know what are their current needs and preferences. For those of us who already have businesses also, again, you might want to look at your contractual engagements. For example, your employees, are they on permanent? Probably can you engage them on much more temporary basis or on a wages basis, probably, as you try to agree. And I think many people are now willing to negotiate because of the turbulent time. Businesses eat everyone. So even those of us who are working, we also need to start accepting that we might have to have more flexible arrangements. The idea here is to get the business to survive. Unfortunately, our government has not been able to cushion businesses. Countries like Netherlands and some of the Scandinavian European countries have been actually able to take permanent, a huge portion of salaries from private businesses so that they allow the business to survive. This is not our case. So we might have to start moving to a bit more flexible contractual engagements, probably where you engage people on a temporary basis. And if you're starting business, probably this is the best place to start. Avoid more permanent fixed contracts. Be a bit more flexible on the flex where you can control the cost, vary the cost with the volume of business. Now, everybody's wondering where do I start? And I've shared a bit of practical thoughts as I move towards summarizing this. And the first thing that I've got, and this I've actually got from our church today, there's probably nothing that speaks about the times we are in more than the book of 2 Kings, 7:3-4. And this is the story of the 4 lepers who were at the gate in Samaria. And they were faced with very hard options. And there was a real famine in the country in Israel. That was the northern kingdom, Israel. And they said, if we stay here, we die. If we go to the city, there's no food. But there was an Assyrian camp where the military had food and stocks. And they said, can we try our chance in that Assyrian camp? If they sympathize with us, we may live. If they kill us, there'll be no difference because we'll have died here anyway. And they exercised their faith and God went with them. And as they moved there, God did a miracle and the Assyrians left the camp and they left food and the city was also able to access the food. This is it was from a prophecy from, I think it's Elisha, Prophet Elisha, and during that time. I think this probably contextualizes the situation we are in. If you have lost a job, you sit there and start whining and complaining when there's still money in the economy. If your business probably have been worst hit and probably you've already lost it, do you sit there and start complaining? How will it help? I always see that it's much easier to control the factors that are within your control. What is not within your control, you let it be, and then you move to what you can control. You have not been incapacitated. You still have the capacity and the ability. And that's where we start. The second thing I was thinking about, many of us are at home. Some of us have children who have no jobs, but they have skills. Some are very good in ICT, probably has who are the older generation not good in ICT. we can actually now start synergizing with the talents we have in business. For example, some of us can bake, but probably you don't know how to sell it on the digital, and you have a child or a young person who is very good in digital. So they can actually deal with the marketing and the advertising on the pages, and you can actually sell. I will give you a very good example like myself. I'm very good at producing and looking for opportunities, but I'm not very good at selling. But my wife is very good at selling. I will give you a story. Like 2 weeks ago, I went home. I had I think 2 years ago, I planted a lot of bananas, and I have a lot of bananas right now. And I went home, and there were quite a lot, and I didn't know where to sell them. I just put them on the cardboard and brought them to Nairobi. And when I came, my wife sold them in 1 hour. She's very good at selling. Until we were looking for more now to supply. She's very good at that. So in a family, you can actually synergize and actually start family businesses. Unfortunately, we are not very good at managing family businesses. And I gave example of the Asian community, they're very good, and there's a lot we can learn from them, where they're able to create a lot of wealth within the family, and they use the family members, and they do a lot of businesses. In countries like America, there are businesses, family businesses that have lasted for over 200 years. And many of other Asian countries, there are businesses that have been family businesses that have moved, where they use the talents, and they train their people and give them skills and competences within that. This is something we can learn. And I'm sure in our homes and our families, we have a lot of talents. We can put those talents and make it a business, actually. You can have a business where you have shares with your children who are able and who are grown up, and actually you do it in a professional way, and you share actually revenues and profits. This is something that we can do right now. Like the biblical characters I talked about, God will bless us with what we have. Do not say that you have nothing. Even in the pandemic, you have something. What you have can be your business. We know right now our kitchens can become the bakeries, and we can start baking from the stuffs we have in our homes. And we can start selling those stuffs in the market, in the digital platforms. You can bake bread, you can bake cakes, you can bake things and sell them online. And link up with the logistics company and get them distributed, or use your car to distribute them. So I know many of us who are in consulting, we are now using our homes. I've told you, like now you've noticed I'm even doing this program in my car. This has become my office in many times when I'm doing those physical field assignments where I want to have control and privacy. So our cars, our houses, what we have can actually become our business. And I think this is the new reality. For those of us who are in like communities and organized groups like ourselves, we can become our sisters and brothers keeper. Like right now, we can support one another. I know like here, I've seen we have 90 people, 100 people in our churches. We have quite a number of people. If we have new people, we have colleagues and members in our fellowships who are starting new businesses. We can become the first customers, and then we can introduce them into our networks. For example, you have somebody who is baking. I can go the extra mile to buy from them so that I can support their businesses and get them started. So I think this is the time to exercise our faith and also be more actionable in our faith in supporting one another. So our networks, our fellowships can actually become our marketplace, our starting point for our marketplace. And I think we need to be more practical and more real. We can start selling to our colleagues, and those of us who are still in those, we can also go the extra mile to buy from our colleagues and give them a starting point or a footing, and then introduce them into a network and get them to start their businesses from their homes, from their kitchens, from wherever they are. So I think we can do that, and it's quite practical and easy. We can now turn our talents, hobbies, and leisure into income-generating activities. I'll give you a very good example. Like myself, when COVID came, I opened a page where I've been writing about money and finances. I realized I was trained some years back to be a financial educator. I was not using that talent. And when COVID came, we were locked at home. I opened a page and been writing there. You can actually access it, Dr. Mumo Muinde. My Facebook page, a professional page I'm doing on financial education. Now, out of that page, I've got networks. I've got people who have given me income activities from that page. People I didn't know, people I've never met, and actually I've still connected them digitally. And I know it's working, and I'm getting out of networks from there. Out of what I've been writing there, I'm actually now working on a book. I told you the articles I've written there have accumulated enough to actually become a book, and I'm actually now putting it together. So I'm saying there are opportunities all over us. Some of us are good at art, We can actually even document the pandemic using our art, using the talent that we have. Some of us have hobbies. We like vegetables. We can now create those gardens as hobbies and actually turn them into income generating activities. So the point I'm saying is that use what you have. You are not empty. What you have is what you can use, and that's what your weapon. What must we overcome? This is the last slide, and we go to the plenary. One of the things that we need to overcome right now is stereotypes and cultural prejudices. Many of us probably are used to comfortable corporate jobs. You've had big corporate jobs, probably you have lost them. And we are afraid of going to probably start selling vegetables or probably going to industries and sectors that we think are not GST. We need to overcome that. And we need to be practical on what is available. For me, I really don't mind. Business is business, and people are making money out of that. There are many people are making a lot of money out of other things. For example, I'll give you a very good example again of myself. Right now, I'm fencing my rural home. I'm buying the eco post, these recycled post. If you go to their shops and their warehouse, you'll not imagine that people are making money from that dirt, and it's becoming major source of income. They are more expensive than the post that we buy with wood. But people are making money from that, and their business opportunity and businesses are being even sponsored and promoted by companies, and they are becoming champions of green growth and green economy. We also need to overcome societal profiling. Many of us are still held up with our status in society. You are known as a professor, you are known as doctor, you are known as this corporate executive. You have lost your job and you're afraid of going because you're wondering what people will think about. These are not the time to talk about those things. Business is business, and you go to where there's money and where business is making money. So probably the sectors where there's money right now might not be the sectors that you're used to. Probably you're thinking of consulting, and probably you have skills and expertise in a sector that has already been hard hit. You might find that you might need to shift your business to somewhere else. So you need to overcome those societal profiling. They don't matter. You need to make money and you need to be in business. There's again fear and self-judgment. Some of us are afraid. Some of us have even lost jobs. You've been driving for the last 20 years. You're afraid, do I take a matatu? When it comes to money and business, you are adhere to the reality. Me, I don't mind. I'll jump into a matatu if I have to. And this is things that we need to accept. We need to accept the new norms. Nobody will judge you if you jump on a matatu. Sometimes we're even judging ourselves when our friends are not even willing to judge us. So I think we need to be real. If incomes have shifted around us, we also need to shift and adjust and be practical with what we have. You cannot move when you are not accepting the reality and where you are. The other big thing, and this is a big problem in Kenya, is the herd mentality. Most likely many of us rush to start a shop. Start selling unga, everything what everybody else is selling. Or you hear people are now going to these players and they're getting stuff and all that. This is a very big problem in our business. When you're doing business, you go to business and sector that you understand. This is something that you need to be. So if you're choosing and moving to new businesses, choose things that you understand, things that you can control, and things that you understand how it works. I told you yesterday, investments. If you can't understand how you're making money out of it, then probably you have not understood it well to go into that particular business, or probably the investment is not good. So what you need to know is to know how am I making money? And if you can understand that, you don't have to go where people are. You can start your own new initiatives, but maybe where you understand. So the herd mentality is very bad in this country, where you start a shop and before you realize it, 10 people around you starting doing the same thing. So we can try to avoid that and do things that we understand. The rule of the thumb, do you know how you are going to make money out of it? If you can understand that and you can see how money will come and how money will flow, then probably you understand that particular business and that investment to go into it. The other thing is procrastination. Simply because you have lost your job, you don't sit there and complain. You get moving. And I said yesterday, money comes to the people who are active and people who are moving. No matter how slow the movement is, make sure you're moving. And probably that would be my last point. And we can move to the plenary. Thank you.
Thank you.
Moderator?
Thank you. Thank you so much, Dr. Patrick Mumo. I'm sure my colleagues and our members of the AWM and our guests who have visited, who are with us this evening, have been blessed by the message on business ideas that we have learned from our trainer, our facilitator for this evening. Thank you so much, my friend. I am sure that currently now we have written a lot of notes. In summary, we have learned about some of the business opportunities. We have learned about things to do with how do we balance risks that we come across in our lives and the returns that come through. We have also finally looked at the barriers that stop us from venturing into business ideas. And yes, it was very, very practical. He started off with telling us that it's going to be very biblical. He shared some verses, some of them from Hebrews 11, verse 1. And then also he shared the practical ideas that he has seen, giving us his personal examples, some of the things he's done. And then, of course, he has told us that the government is big in business. So you cannot do anything without the government. We need to understand the government plans and budgets and priorities. He has told us about how our business can grow from our talents, our hobbies, our family partnerships, and where you synergize. If the husband or the wife is strong in one talent, he shared about the wife being a very big in marketing, among others. So that's a very, very good presentation. We want to go to the panel, to the plenary session, where anyone with a question can put them. You can put your question on the chat, but also we will also allow you to ask a question directly. Maybe we can agree that we'll have to take three questions at the moment at one given time. Then our facilitator can be able to answer them or to respond to them. Thereafter, we can proceed to the next one. We have about 30 minutes for that session, and I'm sure we shall all learn. Thank you. Welcome. Who is going to shoot the first question or a comment? It doesn't have to be a question. It can be a comment or suggestion for all of us. But allow me also, as we do that, I have seen quite a number of our. This is a Nairobi East SDA Church organized webinar, and I've seen quite a number of people from other of our sister churches, from Central Church, Nairobi Central Church, our sister Joy. I've seen also people from Karengata, our sister Florence. I've seen people from New Life and other places. So thank you so much. Welcome, and also members of Nairobi Church and our friends, both Adventists and non-Adventists. Welcome. Feel free to ask questions. For those who joined us a bit later, our speaker is Dr. Patrick, CPA Dr. Patrick Mumo Muinde, as a principal lecturer at Kenya School of Government, and he's a trainer in various areas. He's an economist, and I'm sure that is going to be able to assist us to understand. So feel free to ask any question, and he's going to respond. Thank you. Questions, please, or comments. Thank you. I can see comments from members that they are very happy with the presentation from Dr. Patrick. And one of us has said they are hoping to meet with Dr. Patrick very soon. That's okay. Stronger together, stronger with us. And from Faith, she says that she has benefited from the presentation and has transformed the communities. That's very good. Any other question or comment? Anyone with a question or a comment? I don't know whether I'm able to see the hands up. You can raise your hand up somewhere if you have a question or a comment.
Dr.
Yes, Dr. Patrick.
We can also allow them to share personal experiences.
Indeed, that is it. Yeah,
We can also
thank you.
allow members to learn from one another, especially those of us who are in the business right now.
Oh, very well, thank you.
Allow peer learning.
That's good. This is adult learning. You know, adult learning is about practical experiences sharing.
Yeah.
Yes. Let me begin. Just when I was preparing for this session, I was asking some of my family members some of the ideas they have had recently. And my wife was sharing with us a story about a friend of us who was a colleague of theirs in a place of work where one of the cousins had lost a job somewhere. And she just visited the cousin, and the cousin was able just to say, today I feel like eating a chapati. So the visitor took their chapati, they prepared the chapati and they ate together. And then the cousin who was hosting us told her, but you are very good in doing chapatis. Why don't you do it for our chama? And she did the chapatis and she distributed the chapati to the chama of the host. You can guess what happened. The demand went so high that she's not able to satisfy the demand of chapatis because she's very good in preparing and making chapati, baking. I remember Dr. Patrick told us about our kitchens can be our baking rooms where we can make bread, we can make chapati, we can make everything and distribute. So that lady now is no longer looking for a job. She's able to satisfy. She's not even able to satisfy the market there that is there. So that is a very good example. Anybody else who wants to share some of the experiences, because this is a class for learning. This is a class for sharing experiences, and we are about 57 of us who are here. If all of us were to share ideas here, I'm sure we can improve ourselves, our experiences in our place of work, in our families, because Adventist Women Ministry is a very powerful ministry in our church that tries to assist the women in different ways, identify your talents, identify your skills, and apply them to support the church members, the families that you come from, and even the community that we come from. So any question, any comment, any suggestion? Let me go to the chat room. I can see our sister, Dr. Honorable Elizabeth Juma. She's appreciating our speaker. Our sister Pamela Diego is asking, when it comes to consultancy business, what does one need to do to comply with the government? That's a very good question, Daktari. One of our sisters is asking, if you want to go into consultancy, are there government regulations that limit or guide someone who wants to do consultancy? But I think maybe you could have asked this Pamela, in the consultancy in which area? There could be consultancy in agriculture, consultancy in finance, where Dr. Patrick is. But generally, Daktari, what are some of the government requirements to be a consultant? Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Pamela. In consultancy, it's a bit more flexible in that sector. Now, what we need to understand is the taxes. Many times I've actually seen many people do not understand how the tax structure works in consultancies. Now, there are two ways on how, especially because when in consultancy, it's about the revenues that you're generating. If you're not already organized either as a formal business. If you are a formal business, then you need to comply with the corporate taxes and others. But if you are doing private consultancies and others, many of us actually don't know the law. And we end up even sometimes being charged taxes that we're not supposed to be charged. Right now, there's a consultancy fee, mainly on management and capacity building services, or skills-based services. So if you're in capacity building and management services, this can be in any sector or in any part of the economy. There's a tax that is normally a withholding tax. And I think right now it's about 15% withholding tax. That was introduced from last year. But the tax is only applicable if you generate income more than 24,000 per month. So if you accumulate income beyond 24,000 per month, that is only when the tax is chargeable. So if, for example, you come do a consultancy of 5,000 this week, next week you do another one of 10,000. The other week you do another one of say 7,000, or where you're about 22,000. If you do not do another consultancy that particular month, then you're not supposed to pay the withholding tax on that particular month. So the tax is only due when the services or the consultancy income is beyond 24,000. Now, the withholding tax is final tax. So you do not pay another tax. If the person who was giving you the work, they charge the withholding tax, the tax is final. So you're not supposed to pay another tax. And they are supposed to remit the tax on your behalf, and then you get a tax certificate. Once they remit the tax, you get a certificate on your mail, because now companies are doing the digital tax remission. So when somebody withholds your tax, you should be able to get a tax certificate from KRA. So if they charge you and they do not remit the tax, then that is illegal. It's an illegal practice, common. If they are charging you and you didn't earn more than 24,000, then that is an illegal tax. So you only charge the tax if the services that you did for that month were beyond 24,000. It's on a monthly basis. So even if they don't pay you, if I do like in one company this month and I don't get to 24,000, next month I still work with the same company and I don't get to 24 months, and they now decide to pay me for the 2 months, then they still don't charge me tax. So if I didn't click or clock 24,000 per month, even if they don't pay me in that month, then even if they choose to combine now, pay me on the third month, and they combine it, the money now is more than 24,000, they still don't charge me tax. The tax is charged based on when it was earned. So if any particular month you earn more than 24,000, then the tax becomes due. If you stagger the activity over several months and they don't get, each month does not get 24,000, then they don't tax it. So this is one area where people are even being charged taxes that are illegal. Now, in tax law, one thing you need to know about taxes and tax law, the law itself provides loopholes that are intended to benefit businesses and the taxpayer. But if you don't know about the law and the loopholes, that's what we normally call tax avoidance. Tax avoidance is legal. What is illegal is tax evasion. And that's why sometimes you need to engage. If you're doing a lot of business in that sector and you're not sure about taxation and taxes, kindly feel free to get a tax consultant. They can help you save a lot of money, especially during this time. There are a lot of taxes that are around us. If you are not sure how to go about taxes, you don't just pay tax because they're being paid. You need to know one whether you are within that and you're eligible to pay that tax. So tax is one area where a lot of businesses suffer, and many times people don't want to engage tax consultants. There are people in doing tax consultation. I've taught taxes for many years, and I know many people do not actually know about taxes. Myself, I've even seen where I'm working. Sometimes people are being charged tax when they're actually not eligible to pay taxes. Now, the law on taxation operates on the basis that you know. If you do not know, then you will not be refunded the tax. So you pay a tax because you didn't know. You can't go to KRA and tell them that they refund you the tax. It's a responsibility of you to know your tax. Sometimes if you're in that area, it's good to pay something small to get somebody to help you manage your taxes. The law allows it. So that's what we call tax avoidance. It's legal. That's public legal. You need to find the ways around your investments and where you're putting your money to minimize your tax. That's how you operate. The principle of taxation is a taxpayer. You try to minimize your tax. The government is trying to maximize their tax. It's your responsibility to minimize your tax. If you don't know the law, the government will not stop you from paying a tax that you're not supposed to pay. And if you pay it, they will not refund you because you can't go there and say you didn't know. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Daktari. Thank you for that very elaborate explanation. I don't know whether Sister Pamela, you had this up. I think I was seeing you had maybe before the question was answered on the about.
Thank you, Yes. Thank you, Elder. I actually wanted to ask a question on consultancy, but I believe Daktari has handled it to my full satisfaction. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. Another question that has come is Someone wanted to know your take on annuities and how to save, how safe they are. I think that is coming from Janet, the moderator for yesterday. Our sister Janet, thank you. And then somebody has asked a question about if somebody is looking for a job in data entry, how can they how can they get it? Is there an entry point? And then of course there's another one who has said, okay, I think that is Ryan Mutaya said, thank you, Dr. Mumo, for informative presentation. I've learned some new possibilities in light of COVID-19. Thank you, Dr. Okay, fine. So I would like to ask some of the questions that somebody has asked me. For example, if somebody wants to start a small business and maybe they want to know, is there a certain amount of money they need for them to start a business? Have you seen from maybe your experience, Dr. In Nairobi, one of the biggest challenges that have been facing people is the issue of capital. And so somebody was asking if they have an idea of, say, running a car wash or a beauty salon, you know, or cooking and selling food. Do you know an estimate of the cost of doing that, or the budget, the capital, and where can they get it from? Over to you, Dr. for those questions that you have already received from the members. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. I think I'll start with Janet on annuities, on investment. Probably, I'm not sure exactly what annuities you're referring to, but generally there are a lot of products within the market. Now, sometimes you need to look at if they are what we normally call the unit linked. I think quite a lot of insurance companies are giving those kind of products. You need to be clear when you're getting into some of the investments. Sometimes it's actually good to inquire and get the right information. Now, how the annuity, especially the unit-linked annuities and work. If, for example, you have been given a time horizon of 15 years, if you decide to exceed before the 15 years, they are quite punitive. You actually lose a lot. So most of them, they are designed for the long term and to wait them until they mature. So sometimes you need to be sure that you want to wait for 15 years. Many people get into them and like after paying for 5 years, you decide to get out. When you get out in between, especially those that time frames, they become quite expensive. I said you can actually create your own income generating activities. I talked about the government bonds. Government bonds pay you every 6 months. They pay interest. You can play with the treasury bills and others. So every time you're making an investment decisions, you need to understand the product. The best thing is to understand the product. So the annuities that have a time frame, for example, you have chosen 20 years, and you choose to exceed before the 20 years, they'll be very punitive. And many people tend to think the products are bad. Sometimes it's only how the product are packaged. So you can sometimes consult and seek information. Sometimes you just actually need to take people in that area. For example, you just call them for coffee as your friends, they are friends, and they can actually tell you how to evaluate those investments. Most of the investments around are not complicated. It's only that we never take time to understand the details and the complexities. So it's a question of understanding what the product is. Those like annuities that are long-term and linked to time, they work based on the time frame that are provided. So if you want more flexibility, you can look at other products that are more flexible, like the money market, where you can enter and exceed with much more flexibility. So the best thing is to understand the product and how the product is structured. And I also said yesterday, unfortunately, we still have, even within those sectors, some businesses that are quite unethical, and they are putting investment at risk. So it's good to find for especially stable companies. It's good to also understand how the companies are stable before you invest. About the capital, many of us actually think capital is the problem, but actually most of the time the problem is not capital, it's ideas. I've just talked about, I gave an example, like now there are people who are selling products in Nairobi. I think that should be last year, but one. I bought a bag, this backpack from someone who was selling it on Facebook. And the person who was selling it on Facebook did not have the bag in herself. So when I made a commitment and I did the payment, exactly when she connected me to a store back in the back end in Moy Avenue. That store does not have a front office, a front page, a front place where customers can see the bags. But the bags are being sold on the social media. And I think what the owner is doing is that they import the bags, keep them in the back office, a small office. Then they have recruited people who are selling the bags outside through social media. Once you make a commitment, it's actually when they go and pick the bag for you. So that does not need capital. You only need to be on the social media. Most of us are spending a lot of time on social media. I've talked about now what you're calling the digital stores. Digital stores, you just need to have a platform. For example, if you have a page, you already have a Facebook page. Some of us are already doing things within the Facebook pages or our own pages that we have created. You can actually start advertising products there and just agree with suppliers. What will be the prices? What are your margins? And I gave an example, like many of us are buying things from China, from all over, and we buy them online. Those online stores are not business that buy stock and keep it. They simply provide a digital platform that is linking suppliers and customers. And this is where now the trend is. This is what COVID has taught us. I don't have to have the stock. I can go to the supplier and agree with them. You're going to give me this product at this price. So now I go there, I put it on their website, sell it and get commitment. And once I get it, now is when I go for the stock and you pay the supplier. So this is what is happening. This is what we are calling the digital stores. Digital stores, actually, you don't need probably anything. Right now, if you are going to business right now, one of the lessons I've learned in small businesses is you need to start small. Sometimes don't go big, especially in a very environment like right now. You can start small. For example, you want to sell vegetables. If you have a car, you can start with a boot. I have seen many cars standing on our estate, on our entry points, on roads. I've gone to even Karen. I've seen on Langata Road, people parking vehicles outside the road and they are selling vegetables there. So sometimes you don't need a lot of capital, just need to use what you have. One of the lessons I learned, I did a vegetable business sometimes back. And I actually went big and I lost a lot. And I realized that probably I needed to start small. I needed to pick up and then grow the businesses and move it where I wanted. So the rule of the thumb right now, especially with the uncertainty around government, is to start small. Even if you have the capital, do not go full blown. You can start small and then grow the customers. You can start with the digital platforms. You can use your pages and start selling products. I've seen very many people who are advertising products they don't have. I even have a close family member who is selling products she doesn't have. She gets customers and then gets the product, and then she delivers it. So I think we need to be innovative in how the environment has changed. We need to be innovative. Sometimes you don't need hard capital. Sometimes you just need to revise the idea on how you're doing it. So if you're starting business right now, it's a bit volatile. You need probably to be a bit small scale and then grow with the business. So probably we need to be a bit more precautionary, especially now that it's not very predictable how long we're going to take. But also, I will also say the big problem we have right now is many people have the problem of herding. And when I'm talking about herding, is people just going to where others are. You need to, if you're doing business around your hobbies, around your talents, you actually have a window to be very innovative, and you have a window to start very small. People can even capture. Governments are looking for advertisements. Some of us can draw actually, and we can do these animations on digital platforms. You do not need capital. Probably you already have the computer and you already have the internet. Most of us already have internet, or you have access to internet in your friends or your parents' place, and you can actually start a business there. So sometimes it's not really capital. Many of the times it's a question of just trying to move to where people are. But business do not operate like that. If you have a good idea, you will find money to start it. I think that's very true. And many people don't believe it. But if you have a good idea, you'll find money to start. So don't complain about the capital before you get the idea and the good business idea. And the bottom line is that you keep on moving. I think if you have an idea and you want to actualize it, trust me, you're going to get capital, either from friends or even family. If you have a good idea, people can see the idea can make money, you'll get money to start it. But the rule of the thumb right now is start small, then nurture it to grow. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you so much, Dr. for your very elaborate explanation to all the questions. I know the questions have been streaming in and comments have come through fast and furious, but my leader had given us 30 minutes for plenary session. I know we have so many questions. I've seen a question from one of our sister, Rose. Diego was asked, for a women group of with about 1.5 million shillings, what business can they start that is risk-free? In other words, should not be very exposed. The money for the group should not be lost. So I think that's one for you to answer. As I hand over to the AWM leader, our sister Lynette Otuori, it has been a privilege for me to moderate the session, and I'm sure we have learned something from the rest of us. I would have wanted us to share experiences. I recently started a chicken business at home, and it was about 200 chicken, 250. Because of distance and people there are running it on my behalf, we have lost 50 of them. So we have about 200 of them. When I bought them, I thought all of them were female. But then again, I discovered, because the guy who sold me about 2 months old, we discovered when they were supposed to start laying eggs, that about 70% of them are, of course, females, but the others were male. So I don't even know what they are called. I'm not an agronomist. But the lessons I've learned from there is, like Patrick has said, Dr. Muinde said, start small. Even start with 50 chicken. You don't have to start with so many, or even 20, and then keep increasing them slowly by slowly. So that's some of the experiences we need to share with each other and learn from each other. Thank you so much. I now would like to request Sister Lynette, maybe to allow Patrick to respond to some of the comments that have come through from the wall. Thank you everyone who has made a comment, some of them who have asked questions, of shared their experiences. I know we have learned a lot from what I've notes, and I'm sure, and the presenters also share the notes or the presentation with our AWM leader, Sister Lynette, and she'll be able to distribute them after the class. Thank you so much. Allow me to hand over to our leader to do the last part of it. Thank you so much. You have been great. You have been a very, very great class. Even our visitors have been very good. I've seen comments from our brother Alamek, and many other people have made suggestions for us to improve in the future. Thank you. Over to our Sister Lynette, as Dr. Patrick is giving his closing remarks.
Thank you. I think I'll close with the one who is asking for risk-free business. Business can't be risk-free, but I'll give you a risk-free opportunity. The Central Bank is borrowing at very good interest rates. It's already an infrastructure bond for 18 years that closed last week. I think they're going to open it. The interest is 12.66%. So your 1 million can earn you a cool, how much interest is that? Every year without any risk. So if you want risk-free opportunities, especially if you want to preserve your capital, you need to look at the government securities. Government of Kenya is still borrowing at very good rates. Actually, some of the rates government is giving, you cannot get them in business. Very few business will give you returns, guaranteed returns of 10, 13, 14%. So sometimes you have good money to play around with. It's also good to, you can actually start a business of investing. Business of investing where you are growing portfolios and earning the interest and the dividends. So I think that's still a business opportunity, especially if you're willing to take probably a bit lower returns or lower risks. So normally in business, it's also always a trade-off, high returns versus risks. So if you want really to preserve the capital of the 1.5 million, so with some good return, probably you might want to look at the bonds. Government bonds are still doing very well. I think most of them are doing 10 to 13.5%, which is still good return. But it depends with how long you want to hold your capital. But there are a bit of more flexibility. There are 5 years, there are 7 years, there are 15 years. I've seen a 25-year. The infrastructure bond that was launched recently was 18 years, and it's doing 12.66%, which is a good, and that is tax-free. The 12.66% is tax-free. Infrastructure bond is tax-free. So probably you can be checking, they will be opening, and I'm sure they'll tap into the market again either this month or later next month. And you can, if you have a CDS account, you can be sure of 12.66% tax-free and guaranteed. Thank you. Thank you. Over to you, Lynette.
Thank you so much, Dr. Mumo. I don't know how much to thank you. I think you have seen from the comments that we have really, really appreciated your very insightful presentation since yesterday. Some members are yearning to meet you someday. And I hope that when churches resume, if we invite you to our church, you will be willing to come. So I want to quickly probably before we go to the next, our last step that will take us about 10 minutes, members, just to highlight a few key points that I have picked from Dr. Mumo. Yesterday, one of the key lessons I took home, you talked about, or you advised us that when you lose a job, you have not lost your opportunity to earn. And I think that is a key item or thing for us, especially during this pandemic. You talked about the way things are shifting, and especially in logistics. There is a lot of demand for home deliveries. I know a lot of ladies in our church have businesses that they run. And I'm just looking at how we can leverage on riders, perhaps, to be able to deliver our goods to our customers. I have personally seen, initially we've been seeing boda or motorbike riders, but lately I have actually seen bicycles also delivering. We live in, or we interact in prayer cells. So if you sell water, for example, how do you ensure that the people in your prayer cell drink water from what you supply? One of the key items we want to undertake as a department after this webinar is to run an online market or exhibition that we have done before. And we have learned a lot from this presentation, particularly in terms of how we can leverage on technology to be able to boost each other. In line with that, one of the key things you also said today is we need to support one another in our businesses. We need to be the first customers to ourselves. So I am urging our ladies, more who have joined us, and the youth, so that we are able to support each other. We shouldn't go to Naivas to buy rice when we have ladies in the church or we have members in the church who are selling the same rice. And then the last one is on the farming. You actually told us that the shift is now moving from rural to urban areas. And I think the key lesson I learned or picked is the fact that we can even grow our spinach in pots or at our backyard, so that we are not buying everything, especially now that money is really very scarce. Of course, you said it is in circulation, but we need to be innovative in terms of looking for the same money. So we don't want to stop at the good presentation that you have done. We say amen and we leave it there. So we have organized as a department to do action planning. We want to urge the listeners who have been listening to us, who have been viewing us on YouTube, whatever lessons that you have picked, let us put them into practice. So in Proverbs 16 verse 3, we are told, in their hearts, humans plan their course, but the Lord establishes their steps. So I am hoping that we are going to plan, and then the Lord will establish our steps. And therefore, as part of our action planning, we have successfully come to the end of this webinar, our finances through a pandemic. I want to ask ourselves, either at the individual level or at the family level, to think of the areas in which we want to put this knowledge and skills that we have acquired into practice, so that the next time we meet Dr. Mumo, we have a testimony. We have a table that I'm going to share that will guide us on this area. This is something that we'll do at your own time, particularly after I share the presentations that Dr. Mumo has shared. So you use the table to guide you on the area of concern, the action you want to undertake, the resources that you need, by when, responsible person to undertake the action. He actually told us that in a family, we can be able to share and to partner so that we are able to improve our sources of income. Quickly, in terms of the key areas, on day one, we looked at the Bible on money and wealth, reflection statements, some statistics on money and wealth, money and the pandemic, handling cash through the crisis, borrowing and managing debt through the crisis, investing for value during and post-COVID-19, and planning for retirement. And Dr. Mumo did not forget to also share some enemies of money. Today, I think the 4 key areas were the impacts of the pandemic on the economy, mapping significant shifts in the economy, taking care of the bottom lines in business, and thought of future trends in business. So this is the table that I would like us to, once we are back in our, of course we are at home, but once we are back in our family gatherings, we want to reflect. Could there be anything that has worked in the past that we want to bring back and regain? Maybe there are things that we used to do that probably made us not to go so much into debt, and we are no longer doing them. We need to reflect and probably bring this back so that we, I'm just using one example of maybe borrowing that was also heavily covered by Dr. Mumo. What is working now that we want to keep and retain? And what have we never dared to do that if we could do, would make a real difference? I think in the corporate world, this is what they call the blue ocean strategy. And reflecting on these 3, I am certain that it will push us to the next level. So our table is very simple. Please sit down as a family or as an individual and list the area of concern or problem or interest or the key lesson that you have learned from the topics highlighted. What action are you going to take? Probably you have been selling your rice from your home and now people are not mingling. How will you connect with the riders in the market to be able to probably get your products to where the customers are? It is important to probably list down the resources that you need. They could be human, they could be financial. By when, give yourself a deadline, and who is the responsible person. If it is yourself, let it be yourself. Maybe it is your son, because I know that children now are at home and probably you want the son or your daughter to be doing the deliveries, then you action that person. So that is the action planning that I would want us to reflect on. I will also share this template. Yes, I will share the template when I share with the slides. I'll just share. Okay, so that then brings us to the end of this particular session. I want to, if we do not have any other concerns, our moderator, Elder Letting, I don't know whether I hand it over to you because we need to have the final prayer, but from my desk, as Lynette and the Women Ministries leader, on behalf of my council, on behalf of the women of Nairobi East, we most sincerely want to appreciate the fact that you accepted this invitation. I know we could not have afforded consultancy rates out there, but you agreed to come and share with our members. May God richly bless you. I also want to appreciate everybody who has attended, both ladies from AWM and men from AMO. I have seen the youth here and have also seen the young professionals. It's interesting to note that also our children have also attended and they have really, really benefited. So most of the departments are represented here. Thank you, church board members and elders. You're heavily represented, and therefore we really want to appreciate. Thank you so much, our pastor, Mochache. You were there with us yesterday, and today you're also here. We want to appreciate your leadership in our church and the support that you have given us. In case there is anybody I have not mentioned, please know that we have really appreciated you. Thank you for non-NESDAC members who are here with us. Our elder appreciated you, and I also want to appreciate you one more time. So thank you so, so much. So Elder Letting, if you allow me, then I would like to invite our AMO leader who was supposed to give us the closing prayer. I don't know whether Elder Nyangweso is in. Yes, I can see him.
Yes,
But
I'm in, Linda.
let's find out whether Pastor has anything for us, a word of goodbye before we can pray. As we wait for Pastor to respond, Dr. Mumo, do you have any parting shots or closing remarks?
What I can say is that we are more than able. Let's keep the faith. God is with us.
Amen.
Thank you.
Thank you. Asante sana. I did not know Dr. Muinde as a preacher, so today I think I have also learned another side of you. So thank you so much. Pastor, are you in?
Yes, I'm available.
Yes, Pastor, you can also give us a parting shot before our AMO leader prays for us.
I could like to thank Dr. Patrick for this noble presentation he has done. And it's my prayer, since we have heard the word, to go and practice it. May it be bearable so that it can bear more fruits for us to enjoy in a near future. I was touched by Dr. Reting's share of chapatis. I think nobody should say, I'm sleeping hungry. There is something small which you can do. God bless you.
Thank you so much, Pastor. Thank you so much, Sister Faith. I'm seeing a chat that she got this invitation from a friend, and she's happy to have come. That is from Faith Morevi. Faith, if you're listening, you're very welcome to Nairobi East. If you're not an Adventist, karibu sana. If you're an Adventist, wherever you worship, you're also welcome. So thank you so much. Let me invite our AMO leader, Dr. Muinde. AMO is Adventist Men Organization, and I hope that Elder Nyangweso will also invite you to join our AMO. Asante sana, and God bless you. Karibu sana, Elder Nyangweso. Elder, you're muted.
Sorry. Thank you, Sister Lynette, for the chance that you have given me. Just before I pray, I would like to take this opportunity to personally thank Dr. Mumo for the presentation since yesterday. I've really learned a lot. And I would like to extend my invitation to you to join the Adventist Men Organization of Nairobi East. We consider you a member from now henceforth. You're most welcome. Let us pray. Our loving Father in heaven, thank you because of your wonderful love. Thank you because you implant messages on your various children. Particularly today, you had appointed Dr. Patrick Mumo to speak to us, and he has been able to speak to us a lot of things, Lord, that we want to believe came from you. Father, if we did say anything that is contrary to your will, we take this opportunity to pray, Father, that you may forgive us. But everything else that was said that is in accordance with your will, I pray, Lord, that you may add blessings into it, and may you take it and place it in the hearts of your children better than it was produced by Dr. Mumo. Father, as we proceed into the night, we pray that you will be able to take care of us and watch over us, Father, as we sleep. I know that we are in such a difficult moment of the pandemic world over, and particularly in Nairobi East. We are also affected in one way or another. I pray, Lord, that in a very special way, may you see us through. We are your children, but above all, oh Father, I pray that you may forgive us where we have done things contrary to your will, and prepare us for your second coming. For this I humbly pray and trust in Jesus' name.
Amen.
Amen.
Amen. Thank you so much, Elder Nyangweso.
Amen.
Thank you so much, Elder Leting.
Thank you.
The moderation was awesome. Asante.
Thank you. Thank you.
Okay. So I will
Thank
be
you so much.
sharing the slides on our various walls. And if anybody is not on the walls, then probably you can liaise with whoever referred you, or send me your email address if you have my number, then I will be able to share. Thank you. Asante sana.
Thank you. Thank you. Good night. Before I leave, I would like to recognize the presence of the elder, Elder Melly Rono. I'm sure you would have also wanted to say hi to us. You can spend a second, Elder Melly.
Yes, yes.
No, I'm just grateful for what has happened, and I want to thank everybody for your participation, and God bless you.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you so much. Have a good evening. God bless you. See you next time.